What is up, everybody? My name is Kyle and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining. I hope you like what you see. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. Today's video should be a fun one. I'm going to be rebuilding a friend's terrarium. So I was at my friend's house a few weeks ago. You'll recognize them if you've seen some of my past videos. And we were hanging out at their house. They've got quite a few houseplants, so I was admiring them. And I noticed a terrarium in the corner that was looking like it needed some attention. So I brought it up to them. I asked if I could take it home with me and kind of redo the whole thing. They were down. So that's what we're gonna do in today's video. I actually have the terrarium with me right now. So as you can see, it's a super cool terrarium. The glass is really, really cool. The base is awesome. It's like, you know, driftwood, I believe. But there's not a lot of life going on inside. So I'm gonna clean this out off camera and get it ready to go. And yeah, we're gonna rebuild this terrarium. Let's see how it goes. All right, the terrarium is squeaky clean. It's looking good, and we have a blank canvas to get going. So what I did also off camera, aside from cleaning this, was I prepared some soil for the terrarium. And what I did to do that was I just mixed 2 parts soil, 1 part sphagnum moss, and half a part charcoal. I will recommend rinsing the charcoal out before adding it to the soil mix, or else you're gonna get a lot of that like fine charcoal dust sifting through all the way to the bottom, and it's just a little unsightly. So rinse that out. I did add a little Osmocote, and I did add a little bit of mosquito bits, just because I've had some issues with fungus gnats in my Fox Farm soil. Not Fox Farm's fault. I went ahead and microwaved the soil before I made this. I hope that's okay. I don't know. Let me know if that's not. I microwaved the soil. If the babies live, I think they're just going to be radioactive, so they can join the shrimp at Walmart. Anyway, okay, so that's all done, and we're ready to go here. We've got our blank canvas. And what we need to do now is we need to decide what the front of the terrarium is going to be. My gut is telling me the part that slopes the furthest down, just because you get like the maximum amount of viewing like this. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to build it from the front to the back upwards. So from the back up, so that you get this kind of like sloping effect. So I'm going to call this the front of it. And what I want to do is I've got some aquarium soil. I'm gonna put some aquarium soil down just to create a bottom barrier to catch any water so that the soil isn't really, really soggy and there's somewhere for that water to escape to. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. I'm not sure how high I'm gonna raise it yet. I'm not really sure how high I'm gonna raise anything yet. We're gonna be kind of figuring this out along the way, which is just a theme for everything that I do. So let's do this. Maybe we'll get some ASMR out of the rocks. So I'm just hoping to have this land in any of the low points. And then I have this mesh. I'll add it, everything that I'm using that I can, I'll add in the description with links. I forget the name of this stuff, but it's basically a mesh that you can use to separate that rock layer from the soil layer. Typically when I'm doing terrariums with like a nice circular base, I'll cut this into a circle so it fits perfectly. This is very, very strange shaped. It has different depths. It's very oblong. So what I think I'm gonna do, if anything, is I'll probably cut sections of this out for specific spots, but we'll see if we even need it. Let's just keep adding the rocks. Probably enough to start with. I also have a bunch of these terrarium tools. I don't know if you can see them. I'll go ahead and link them. It's, you know, different sized, I don't even know what you would call this, but just for shaping and pushing. Couple sets of tweezers and a set of scissors. But yeah, I'm just gonna use this and try to push these rocks to some of the places that they haven't made it yet that are in the lower sections of the terrarium. I think we're actually looking pretty good. I'm gonna do a little bit more just to be safe. Okay. And I want it to be pretty level, because ideally you're not seeing much of this rock. It's not necessarily a focal point of the terrarium, but you want to leave enough space where it can collect some water and leave a little gap. So I think this is looking good. I think we've got the rocks everywhere that we need them. Here, I'll show you with the camera. So as you can see, it's not filled all the way to the top of that inside glass. That wouldn't really leave us enough room to mess with and have fun. So I'm probably going to incorporate some of that glass into the terrarium, thinking about it. But yeah, I think that's going to be enough rock. All right, I am going to include a little bit of this mesh just because I got lucky and the first piece I cut seems to fit pretty nicely. So just to demonstrate what I'm doing here on camera, I've got this mesh, which I cut roughly to the shape that I'm trying to cover here. And I'm just using it to cover this section of rocks. So it's not perfect, but there will be soil that's going to get put down. So it should hide the mesh and then also push it down the rest of the way. So that's what I'm looking to do. I'm going to try to do the spot here, here, and maybe here, and then we'll put some soil down. So again, I don't think it has to be perfect, but let's see how we're doing here. This might be a little big. No, it's looking good. So we've just got that one last little piece right here, which I should be able to knock out pretty quickly. Famous last words. But if I'm getting lucky like I have been with those other three, we should be good here. Okay, there we go. So it doesn't look pretty, but the mesh is roughly laid out, and I'm gonna start adding some soil now with a better camera angle. All right, so we got the substrate barrier down. That's what it's called. I checked the package over there. I'll be sure to link it in the description. But yeah, we've got the substrate barrier down. The rocks are underneath that. It's roughly where we need it to be. So now is the messy part. I'm gonna start laying down some of the soil. So yeah, I already mentioned the composition of this soil. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna try to do this with the front facing you guys. That's the front, right? So that's the front, just so that hopefully it's a little more clear what I'm trying to do. But I'm just gonna start adding some of this soil. I'm gonna start small, and could always add more as we go. So first and foremost, I'm trying to plop it on the substrate barrier, which I'm going to say a lot now that I know the actual name of it. I'm trying to plop it down in like the center of the substrate barrier just to hold it in place. So I'm probably going to be out of frame here for a second, but do you like that leg move? It's about the terrarium, not me. So laying down some of the soil. Forgive me while I move. I'm a lefty, so we're going in with a right-handed shot. Okay. Yeah, this is going surprisingly smooth. With some of even like the circular terrariums that I've done, I've struggled to get this substrate mesh to stay down or stay where I want it, but we're not really having that problem today. I'm wondering if it has to do with the weird shape. This could actually work in my favor. So most of this substrate barrier is covered now, which means it should be mostly hidden if I did it right. If not, that just means we have to make the rest of the terrarium look even nicer so nobody notices. Okay. Sounds like a gong. All right, I'm just gonna push some of this down to see what we're working with. I moistened the soil a bit before I started, but I didn't get it wet. So it's going to compact a little bit, and I imagine that this is fluffier than it's going to be once we start getting rocks and sticks and moss and stuff in here. But what's nice is actually this layer of soil is almost all even with itself now, which was not the intention, but not complaining. All right, so I'm gonna bring the camera close for a second here so you can see what I've done. So as you can see, the soil's pretty level all the way around the base right now. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to build it up and back that way. So I want the highest point of the soil to be here, and the lowest point is gonna be down here. I'm gonna try to do that while maximizing the amount of space that we have to like add sticks and rocks. What I don't wanna do is create a straight up wall, because that'll end up collapsing. And I don't want it to have so much soil that there's not really any room to add anything else. So that's what I'm gonna try to do. I'm gonna switch the angle here, but I want to explain it just in case that doesn't come through in the next shot. So we can be a little more generous with the soil now. Trying not to get any on my tablecloth. I was gonna take the tablecloth off, but I figured it would be harder for you guys to see what's going on here. So I always throw it in the washing machine when I'm done. Another recommendation is always make more terrarium soil than you think that you're gonna need. It goes pretty quickly. Even here, I thought I was gonna have some left over to make maybe another one for myself, but I think this is gonna be just enough. Making a mess. But as you can see, I'm like sloping the soil up and back. So give a little more depth to the terrarium. It'll also increase, like I said before, the surface area for you to add moss and other plants and things. So it's good for the visual. It's also good for adding more into the terrarium. The other thing I want to be mindful of is I'm going to add moss, and the moss is going to take up some height too. And I've made the mistake before of getting a little too generous with the soil, and then when I add the moss is already higher than I intended. So I'm going to try to keep this pretty low, pretty compact. You know, it's a terrarium, so it's going to have a lid, so the moisture is going to stay inside. So I'm not super concerned about it having a ton of soil to retain moisture. And this mix that I made is pretty moisture retentive, so it's going to hang on to that water. I think that's about where I want it to be. I'm going to go look at my moss and bring that up here, and then we'll start adding moss to this. Actually, before I start adding the moss, I want to start playing with some of the wood and rock elements, just because it's going to allow me to save some moss if I know where everything is going to go. I can also plant these things a little bit deeper into the soil so they have a more natural look inside of the terrarium instead of just laid on top of the moss. So I'm going to go ahead and play with that. These are just some pieces of driftwood that I had laying around. These are some rocks that I've had laying around. These are rocks I actually collected out of the base of this. So there's like these nice blue ones, these really nice red ones, and then some whitish rocks. And then this piece, it's some sort of gem. Let me try to get it on camera here. This was actually already in the terrarium, so as a nod to that terrarium, I want to make sure to include it. Okay, here's how we're looking. So I ended up not putting any rocks in yet, but what I went for was adding a couple of these pieces of driftwood where I roughly wanted them. So the hope is that this one's gonna stand like this, create a little bit of interest in the foreground, and then this piece in the back operates kind of like a dead tree or like a big stump coming out of the ground. So I'll probably incorporate the gem piece somewhere over here. And then I thought about using these blue rocks to kind of create a little bit of like a rock garden off to the side here, or maybe around this piece of wood, just to switch up some of the coloration. We'll get to plants eventually. I have a few ideas, but for right now, I want to make sure I get the wood, the stone, and the moss ready to go. All right, we're moving on to the moss. So let me flip this around so you can roughly see what's happening here. Sorry if there's like a glare and stuff. I'm realizing that it's not very easy to shoot video when you're shooting it through glass and working with terrarium. So hopefully it looks all right. I'm still gonna post it. But if you have any recommendations for how to shoot terrarium builds, I'm all ears. So yeah, I've got some of the wood in here, roughly where I want it to go. I've decided that the rocks are gonna come after the fact. So let's talk moss. I have cushion moss that we're gonna be working with here. I'm hoping I have enough. So I've got one container of cushion moss, and then even though it says Padwoon Sen, this is also cushion moss. Inside of this one, there's some ferns growing. And something else. It's not like a bryophyte or anything like that, but there's, as you can see, there's other life growing in here. So I'll probably incorporate some of that into the terrarium. What I try to do, we're gonna do the better moss first. What I try to do here, because you'll see as I pull this moss out that sometimes there's a lot of extra that comes with it. Let me show you, for example, like, here's a good example. You see all of this, what I assume is dead moss down here. I don't want that. That's just gonna add too much height. So typically what I do is I'll cut it back to the green and then I start to layer it in. Back when I had nice sheets of moss, I would just lay out sheets of it, but I don't really have that going for me right now. So I'm just gonna get started here. Eventually I'll probably change the camera angle, but might as well get going. And I lied, I'm actually gonna use this moss because some of it is a little more sheet-like than this healthier looking moss. So we'll start with this. So I know I just did that behind the terrarium, but basically I just cut this whole chunk off of the bottom here, and I'm just gonna find a good spot to lay it. Oh, that's looking good. Now let's see if I can get this piece of wood in there where I want it. Get it staying. Nice, okay. So that's looking pretty good. And yeah, I'm just gonna keep chipping away, adding as much sheet of it as I can to cover as much ground, and then I'll start filling in the gaps. I mean, it's already coming to life. It looks so much better than just dirt and wood. And we're just plugging away here wherever makes sense, dropping in some moss. You know, if we do this right too, it will, you know, it'll spread and it'll eventually fill out anyway. So I'm not super concerned about having every square inch covered. For the sake of the video, I'd like to, just so it looks nice for you guys. But, you know, if you're building terrariums at home, the moss is alive, so it will spread, it will grow over time. You don't have to stress it too much. I also realize I could be using my tweezers. So let's do that. So this isn't the most exciting. So I'm just gonna go ahead and finish this off camera, and then I'll report back after I've got all the moss in. Okay, so we're looking great. This is how we're looking right now. The driftwood is in, all of the moss is in. I really like the angle that it's sloping up. I was able to retain some of the glass in here. And the last piece is I want to add this gem that was in the original terrarium into it. And I think I'm just going to put it up over here because that was some of the not so great looking moss. It'll grow around it. And I think it's just spaced out really nicely. All right, as you can see, we're, top down on this terrarium. You can see the stone in the bottom right, the incorporation of the glass in that top left, that first piece of wood in the foreground in the top right, and then this stump-looking piece here in the bottom left. The moss is not perfect, but as long as it takes, it'll just start growing. I also included, I don't remember what those are called, but those little goofy looking guys. You can see them in the top left over there. So hopefully they'll take off a little bit too. If I figure out the name, I'll include it. But with some of the stuff that grows in my moss, I just like to incorporate it into some of the terrariums because it obviously likes the humid environment. So you'll see, I'm sure by the end of this, there'll be a couple of those ferns in there. But yeah, we're looking good. And we're gonna move on. So real quick here, I actually changed where that stone was. It was a little too even. It was a little too like 1, 2, 3, 4, a little too square. So I offset it. I set it closer to the stump. I think it's looking good. You'll get a better idea, I think, once we're finished. But yeah, looks a little more natural. Looks a little less grid-like. All right, so just a couple more steps here. I'm gonna add a few extra small rocks just to make things look natural and add to the visual. And then we will talk plants. I'm not gonna add many now that I'm looking at this, but I know there's at least one I wanna put in here. And then the last step is gonna be adding some springtails and then switching out the lid on this thing. So we're in the final stretch. I'm just gonna start playing with some rock arrangement now. We'll see how much of this I actually keep in, but this is the kind of like play around and find out part. I'm already realizing I think I like these blue stones more. The wood gives off a lot of red, as does that original gemstone that was included. So I think I'm liking this addition of blue and white. I think it adds some nice contrast here. But there is one red stone in particular that I want to include just because it's really cool. So I'll find a spot for that. But yeah, basically we're just trying to make this look natural, like these rocks have been here for years. It helps to sometimes push them in a little bit. If they're sitting on top, it looks a little like you just stuffed a rock on top, So yeah, play with different sizes of stone, different shapes of stones, different colors together. Whatever feels right, you can always move it around. And honestly, over time, some of this stuff, the moss overtakes it anyway. So have fun with it now because you may never see it again. Okay, so I mentioned plants for the terrarium. And this is probably my favorite terrarium that I've got. There is some driftwood back there, and there is a Pikachu right there. And there is some string of turtle down there as well. But you'll notice it's been pretty overtaken by this Hoya serpens, which was always the plan. I got this Hoya serpens as like a 3-node cutting from a cellar a few years ago. And it just lived in a 2-inch pot, in a cloche, under a grow light. Did nothing for me, like literally did nothing for me. Heard it liked humidity, heard it liked being in terrariums, so I built this terrarium specifically for it. And I mean, it's been less than a year, and again, look at this thing. It's like, there's so much Hoya serpens in there. So I'm gonna include some Hoya serpens just because it's a cool Hoya. You don't see it a lot. It can be a little finicky, but it does really well in terrariums. So I think I'm just gonna roll with the Hoya serpens and then some of the ferns from the moss, and call it a day with that. So like I mentioned, we're gonna add some plants to this thing now. I went ahead and I cut some of the Hoya serpens. I grabbed a couple small pieces of fern from what was growing on top of my moss. And then as a little experiment, I actually already threw an air plant in there. That's a piece of an air plant that broke off of one of my larger air plants last night. It might rot, it might thrive. We're gonna find out. So yeah, air plant, Hoya serpens, fern, Sandwich drinking water, if you can hear that. Hi, Sandwich. All right, now I'm just gonna figure out where to put all these plants. Cool. Got a little fern, which I'm sure will blow up before too long. Actually, let's put the little fern in the foreground for now. And the bigger fern can go in the back since it's a little more established. Set it up right by this rock. Fluff it up. The plant fluffer. Beautiful. Cool. So I think that's it. I'm going to bring this a little bit closer so you can see. I'll do some close-up shots, and I'll try to find a spot in the house where it's a, I thought that was a fungus gnat, where there's not so much glare, but it's looking really nice. The last thing here, and let me make sure this is in frame. Yep. So when I got the terrarium from my friends, there was this candle lid on the top, which fit nicely, but my concern with that is it's not letting light in from the top. So I have a bunch of glass where around the house, just stuff I collect from the thrift store for terrariums, for the kitchen, for jarring, for pickling, all that stuff. So I have a Yankee candle top that actually fits near perfectly. It fits good enough to create a seal and create some humidity. Also, there's actually enough gap to maybe let a little air in and out, but that's just gonna let more light in through the top. It's just gonna let it look nicer. Instead of all the light having to come in from the sides, you're gonna be able to get light from the top down. So everything will grow nicer and the terrarium will just be better lit. So yeah, that's that. I have one more thing, and that's the Springtails. So I'm gonna throw my macro lens on because I'm hoping I can get some cool shots of these little suckers. All right, the camera's out of focus right now because I have a macro lens on, and ew, don't mind my skin. I'm gonna show you the Springtails here. Just let me carefully get the lid off because they're all gonna start jumping. Yeah, so those are my Springtails. The Springtails are obviously the little white guys moving around. The larger white pieces are actually grains of rice. So I feed these guys by throwing a couple grains of rice in there. It'll mold over, and then the Springtails will eat the mold. So yeah, these are my Springtails, my little colony. I used to have a larger one. I killed them. Not sure how. I think I overfed them and they got overpopulated. But regardless, these are my Springtails. We're going to add them to the terrarium, and they're going to help keep it clean. They're going to eat any mold. Anything that you don't want growing, really, they're going to eat. Look at that. Super cool. Sorry, I'm just getting distracted by how cool this is. I think it's in focus. But yeah, Springtails. Oh, and they call them Springtails because, watch, you see them jump? Well, you saw them jumping earlier. Oh yeah, they're going. Oh, I'll grab that kernel of rice out in a second, but just want to make sure I get enough of them in there where they can do their business, they can start their colony, a new colony, a brand new colony, just like that Postal Service song. But yeah, they're looking happy already. I mean, I don't know if they're happy. I shouldn't say that. They're moving. Springtails are in. That's it. We're done. Like I said, I'm gonna go try to find a spot where I can shoot this without glare and give you a better idea of what it looks like. But overall, really happy with this. I think my friends are gonna like it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this terrarium build. I know I was not super thorough, so if you have any questions about what I did or any questions about terrariums, please feel free to drop them down in the comments. I'll make sure to get back to you. Even if I don't know the answer, I'll let you know. But yeah, I really enjoyed building this terrarium. I've still got it right here. Can't wait to bring it to my friends. I hope they like it as much as I do. And yeah, if you liked what you saw, please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be posting more videos. So yeah, hope to see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.